Hi, my name is Rosemary Veniegas, and I am Bruin Pride. I believe that I started at UCLA in 1994, and I know I graduated in 1999. I was very fortunate. I had a fellowship from the university in order to study at UCLA, as well as a fellowship from the American Psychological Association. So I had a 5-year, arc here as a graduate student. I came to UCLA because of the research of key faculty at the university, and the person whose work really drew me to UCLA is Dr. Ann Peplau's work. And I learned early on in my search for graduate school that I wanted to work at a university where there was a strong gender studies emphasis, but also a strong focus in social psychology, which was my area. And so I came to UCLA because of Ann Peplau, and also because of the work of another researcher whose name is Jim Sedanius, who did a lot of work looking at political psychology, and his work actually addresses some of the issues that we're seeing today in Ferguson, Missouri. So really inspired by my feminist foremother, who did same-sex relationships research, and also by my political psychologist forefather, who did research looking at race and ethnic relations in urban centers. While I was at UCLA and in the Department of Family Medicine, I was very fortunate to have colleagues who were working to advance health for gay men and bisexual men who were suffering from the symptoms of substance abuse. And during that time, one of the things that I realized was we all need access to health care, whether it's prevention services for mental health or substance abuse, or whether it's just general health care for diabetes or STDs or any other health issue that we have. And I was very fortunate at that time to have a trusted circle of colleagues who were interested in advancing what was one of our goals of the LGBT Health Forum, which is to ensure that throughout Los Angeles, regardless of which door you enter through, that we as LGBTQ folks would experience the same high quality care that any other client or patient would have in a healthcare setting. And for about a year, I think the group met and we talked through pilot projects that we might do together. We talked about some of the goals that the group might have, and really started, I think, a network that, although we're not continuously meeting right now, several of the members continue to be active in developing curricula that advance LGBT health through medical schools, in advancing the work addressing lesbian and bisexual women's health, and also in addressing trans health at various levels, whether through community clinics, health systems, or even throughout the county. One of my favorite memories is there was an affinity group that was hosted in the psychology department, and it was LGBTQ grad students, faculty. I think we also had employees of the department in the affinity group and their allies. So it was the psychology department itself was a safe space, but it was a space into which one could come in through this particular affinity group. And Jane Simone, who is now, I believe, at the University of Washington, was the convener of this affinity group, and I still maintain contact with her. And so I remember joining the cohort of graduate students at UCLA and coming into a community of other graduate students, faculty, staff, and allies within the department. And that helped me to realize that I could take the personal and professional, blend them, twist them, evolve them, and do really, amazing work while being true to myself. One of the things that I got to do that I loved doing when I was with the UCLA Department of Family Medicine was to be able to connect with our community leaders who are advancing HIV/AIDS services in the county. And in May of 2012, had a chance to facilitate with a few friends a meeting to look at the needs of women who would be accessing HIV/AIDS services, whether prevention services or care and treatment services. And the meeting was held at a residential home for women who were recovering from substance abuse. It was filled with sister friends from various communities that I'd gotten to work with at UCLA. And we spent probably 2 to 3 hours that evening scribing on the walls. What are the priorities for services addressing women's needs, whether they were women at risk for contracting HIV or women who were living with HIV? It was probably one of the last community meetings that I got to facilitate before I left UCLA. But it was also one of the meetings that I'm most proud of, because we had in the room, I think, women who represented the very diverse communities, some of whom we never hear from. So there were women and allies there working with sex workers. We had transgender sisters and brothers there. We had women who were working with families where there was trauma and interpersonal violence. We were working with community leaders who had fought the struggle for decades, and people who were new to the field. And so it was a chance to bring all of us together and then to lay out priorities that were then forwarded to the county health department to integrate into some of their strategic planning for HIV/AIDS in LA County. So I remember that meeting. I remember the room and how, it was just folks coming together who had not come together before in a unified goal. And so it was probably one of my favorite memories. And I transitioned and left the university in September. So it was in the last 6 months of my time at UCLA. For me, Bruin Pride is inspiration. I love that there are articles in the LA Times about families raising transgender kids. I love that at UCLA, the LGBT Center is celebrating its 20th anniversary. It's amazing to be in Los Angeles right now. We have healthcare reform, education reform, immigration reform, and we have the advancement of LGBT rights being led by the Williams Institute. UCLA is a magnet for people who want to advance movements, to affect change, and to inspire the next generation. So Bruin Pride is about inspiration, from the kids being raised by families to the emeriti professors who are providing expert testimony on the cases that decide my rights as a citizen and happy resident of Los Angeles.